Okay, so I'm now done my new table saw fence. So I'd first like to give a shout out to Jeremy Schmidt. His concept using the threaded rod in the front is what kind of got me going and got me thinking about how to maybe not even improve on the design but change it a bit. My table's pretty long, so I did not want to have to go to the end of the table and turn the entire rod. So instead I made it all turn from this dial down here, which sits perfectly into these drilled out holes in order to lock it into place. Now, lock it into place. It'll be exactly on the 1/8. If I move it to a 1/16, you'll see it just pull over that little bit when I lock it in. And it is exactly where it needs to be every single time. Very, very repeatable cuts. It's nice being able to leave and come back to a project and have it exactly the same every time. So the next bunch of this video is going to show you exactly how it was built. And let me know what you think. Thanks.
Okay, I started out with some 2x2 square tubing, welded on a piece of 1/2 inch thick flat bar on the bottom. Then I tacked on my angle iron, welded it all up, and put on the springs, welded them in place. If you want to see how they're built, go to Jeremy's video. I added a third spring to the other side just to keep it a little bit straighter while you're moving it back and forth. There it is, sitting in position. Then I got the pieces from the machine shop. Here's a close-up of them. Bearings already installed. There's the ball pressed in with the spring.
Okay guys, I got the pieces back from the machine shop so I can start assembling my table fence. So this was cut out of 4-inch aluminum. It had a hole in it, so I put a spring and a 1/2 inch ball. I've already pressed on my ball bearings on each side. Then I stamped my measurements, filled them in with paint, and then just buffed off the outside. So there's the main piece, little guide roller there, one of the plates, and the other side. Basically, this is how it's going to sit together. Now the ball lines up with each one of the holes. So right there I'm on the 1/8 inch mark. Sorry, I'll get rid of this one. And that's adding a 64th. And there is actually a hole in between there. Doesn't really sit in there great. I didn't want it to. It was just in case you needed to shave off a real small amount. And it's in between each of these. And the 1/16 is a little bigger, the 1/8 is the biggest. And that's going to give me my fine tuning. And it is going to be sitting against this threaded rod, but attached to the fence itself. Now, if you ever plan on building something like this, I learned the hard way, measure your threaded rod before you buy it. Actually lay a measuring tape along the entire stretch of it and make sure they all line up perfectly. Because I'll see if we can get this to see this. See all the gaps in there? This is the first one that I bought. It is a 1 inch, 8 threads per inch, but it won't even line up with the other one that I bought. A nut will thread on it, but it is nowhere near. In 4 feet I was out, or I had 3 extra threads in a 4-foot section, and I have an 8-foot table, so obviously it was not going to be very accurate. The new one I've installed is exactly, it might be out, you know, maybe 5 or 6 thou by the end of the entire 8 feet, so it's very, very close.
First I welded the flat bar onto the backside. Everything must be precisely square. Then I welded it on to the square tubing, and it didn't work. Only the bottom end moved and the top roller couldn't engage, so it just tipped up the fence. This time I thought the flat bar would angle down a little bit further, but it just bent. Stayed permanently in place. Third time, tried square tubing sliding inside the other tubing, but it didn't slide very well. This is a smaller piece of square tubing with some UHMW screwed to the side of it. And it slides quite nicely inside the other one. And I had to cut everything apart, weld it to my existing stuff. Careful not to overheat your slides. Next I worked on the cam. Now I tried drilling a hole through a 1-inch rod first, but it didn't move it far enough in and out. So I had to weld tabs on the side and drill the holes further down. Careful not to overheat your bearing on this one. drilled some holes for cold roll. That's where I hook my springs to. So here's play to the right and how far it moves to the left. So obviously if that's engaged permanently, the fence moves that far. So this is just some flat bar welded inside. And you can see I've angled the one welded to my fence. I mounted my wedges, or the UHMW, and then I spread it apart. Same thing on the front side. So those are angled in just slightly, so it gets tighter and tighter the further you push it in. This set goes on the very bottom underneath of the cam. So you weld them in place first, let it cool off, and then mount your slides. So I ended up having to use 3 springs. It wasn't quite strong enough after the wedges. Welded a piece in between the 2 side flat bars and the bearing. Here I tacked on some flat bar, bent it around the shape, kept tacking it as I went. Started cutting out where my handle was going to come through. Drilled and tapped some holes. Here's where I capped off the other end. Then I finally welded my pins in place for the roller assembly, or for the cam. Finally ready for some paint. There you can see the finished product. Quickly made a little plastic indicator. Just used a heat gun to melt it so you could bend it into a 90. There it is on the 1/8 mark. 1/32. 1/16. You can see it lines up exactly on the line.